Good evening and welcome to MetroFocus. I'm Jenna Flanagan. When it comes to the restaurant world, men have ruled the kitchen for decades. In fact, it's been said that it's easier for a woman to become a CEO than a head chef. But some of the industry's leading voices are fighting back. They're pushing to eliminate the sexual harassment and discrimination women have encountered in restaurants across the country. For years, female chefs have also struggled to break through the industry's glass ceiling, land top jobs, and earn the respect they feel they deserve. That struggle for success, as well as the fight to pave the way for the next generation, is now at the heart of the documentary, A Fine Line, A Woman's Place is in the Kitchen, which is airing on PBS. Here's a preview.
I got 8 rejection letters that said, we don't take women in our kitchens. Going forward, what women have to look at is they have to create their own destiny. Women can cook as hard and fast as men.
I'm a kid from Southie who lives in a housing project, zero education, but in my head, I knew what I wanted. This is what I know how to do. This is the only thing I know how to do, really, and I'm good at it.
When I opened the first restaurant, I had one child, and I said, listen, I have this torment in me. I'm a mother, I want to stay with her all the time, and yet I have this business and I'm passionate about it, and I want to do that, and I need to do that. The pediatrician looked me straight in the eyes and he said, children want happy parents. Make it happen.
Ladies, let's go! People say to me, why do you keep growing? Why shouldn't I? Why shouldn't I do what I love? I come in here and it's home. I know my kids are good. I feel that I've accomplished what I should have done for my family. Now it's my turn.
And joining us now is the film's director, producer, and writer, Joanna James, as well as Victoria Blamey, executive chef of the acclaimed Gotham Bar and Grill. She was also honored at the film's New York City premiere for her work in the industry and being an example of leadership for women chefs and restaurateurs. Welcome to you both to the program.
Thank you for having me.
First, Joanna, I have to say, this film is so incredibly relatable. This isn't just about the chef world, about the restaurant world. I mean, this is really about women. Right. But I'm wondering why you chose to focus on this particular aspect of it.
Well, number one, I was inspired to share my mother's story. Spoiler alert,
yeah.
But my mother's been in the industry for over 30 years, and I was raised in the restaurant industry by her side. So seeing someone who was so good at what she was doing, loved it, gave it her all, but yet faced barriers and obstacles, it didn't make sense to me. And then I became a working mother when I started making this film about 5 years ago, and everything started to resonate on a much deeper level. And then, like you mentioned, a lot of the issues that women face in this industry, the hospitality or restaurant industry, are really issues that we face across all industries. So once we can start to explore what the reasons are and try to, tap into erasing them, I think we'll see more women in leadership and ownership as opposed to the disparity that currently exists.
Victoria, I was just wondering from your own experience, having seen this film, was there something that particularly jumped out at you that you were like, that was my story. That's pretty much what happened to me.
I loved Val, right? Mm-hmm. Her story, I thought it was incredible. And I was mentioning actually today, it kind of made me cry at the part when she said, I became a bull. When she's like, I have bills, loans, and, kind of like you feel there's like an overwhelming wave, that is just eating you. And I think sometimes that feeling of like you just have to make it happen, and then you become something that not necessarily who you are, but who you have to be at the time, I think is for sure resonates with me right now and 100% level, yeah.
I'm wondering how much the fact that so many of these women found their calling as chefs through other women, i.e. their moms or their grandmothers, etc. How much did you find that to be a common thread just in the cooking world in general?
Well, that's the thing, that we shouldn't have to block their rise to success because they're a woman. Because the truth is that all the greatest chefs, most of them, males of course as well, were inspired by their mothers or their grandmothers. So, so it's not about, well, how bad do you want it, and then you're going to reach there. Like Victoria's saying, especially as women, you have to work twice, triple as hard to prove yourself. On top of that, in some kitchens, especially 20, 30 years ago, it was a completely different arena in terms of the harassment, in terms of the thinking that women couldn't hang and couldn't do it. And now, thankfully, it's become more professionalized, so a lot of that type of environment just wouldn't be tolerated today. But there's still, when it comes to women rising into leadership, like Victoria said, you have to deal with media, you have to deal with the fact that women aren't getting as much coverage, as much recognition or awards, and that has a direct correlation to funding and access to capital. But beyond that, it's also, women have to really want it bad enough, because you're automatically going to face so many more obstacles just because of your gender, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. With the whole Me Too movement that we've seen, so many stories of, unfortunately, some deplorable behavior that's gone on in all industries, but definitely in the restaurant world. And Victoria, I wanted to get your take on how you've seen in this short time changes begin to happen as a result of that. Has there been enough? Do you think that there needs to be more that's done?
I don't think necessarily it's enough, and I think it's too soon to actually. I think right now you can take the temperature of the environment, that we live in, but I think it's too soon to judge and say things are changing. I think people are just more scared than anything else. I think it was kind of retrieve mode of like, oh, it could be you next, instead of being, what is it that we've been doing wrong and what is it that we can do better? And what's actually interesting for me, if I have to, think about it personally, is actually how you take this, like, for example, thinking, oh, that was harassment, I've been working for 15 years and, I've had really good experiences in general, but of course I've been working, usually being the only woman in the kitchen, and then sometimes you have had some sort of harassment that in your brain was like tolerable. I think it's about tolerance, where right now the needle moves very differently, and I think for sure you'll see in 10 years, maybe now, try to understand where we're going.
I want to pivot a little bit and talk about family, because that's also a very big theme, particularly for your mom. We have a clip of your mom from the film, and I just want to show that very quickly so people get a sense of your mom's unique flavor.
Tonight is a murder night, you understand? Don't screw up tonight, because guess what? You're going to McDonald's. Watch your back, watch your back.
Her energy was unlike anybody else's I've ever worked for. There were no roadblocks that were going to stop Val. She put everything she had into it.
Everybody came after me. Creditors, bills, loans, everything was on my shoulders. I had a vision just to work. I have nothing, but I will make something. I became a bull and I kept on going.
So that was just one of the many amazing clips that we got from your mom throughout this film. And she talks so much about her passion for you and your brother, but also how she views the restaurant as an extension of family. Balancing family and career is something that women still seem to be navigating. And I'm wondering, what was it that you were able to learn from your mom's experience that has guided you as a working mom now?
Well, I learned that it's not necessarily about balance as much as integration, figuring out how to make it work for you as a working woman, and especially I have nothing but the utmost respect and love for single mothers, because I'm married with such a supportive husband who's my ally. He believes in me when sometimes I don't believe in myself. So to do what she did and what a lot of women do today without that type of support system is huge. And so the way I think she navigated it was really not trying to feel the guilt that we put ourselves through as working mothers a lot. And that I took to heart the most when I started having kids, because I have 3 under the age of 5. And, you know, it's not the end of the world if you miss a first something or you miss something, because you're going to make it up some other way. And my mom was so good at that, where when she was there for us, she was really there. She was so present. It wasn't like I'm on the phone doing 100 things, but yet this is my time with you. And so I think that's important. You have to really make it count. Yes, we had an unorthodox way growing up, I guess, but I would never know the difference, you know, and I don't ever think back, oh, I miss this about my mom, because she filled in that space and time with so many other great experiences. You know, the fact I even was raised in the industry by her side, I had so much time with her. Whatever the job is that a working woman is going through, try to figure out how you can have your kids involved in it. And it's a little easier, to be honest, in the restaurant industry, because it is, especially if it's yours, it's a place that you can bring them, as opposed to if it's, you know, you're a lawyer, you're a journalist, you're someone who's always on the go. That's a little more difficult. But, you know, we put ourselves through so much guilt, and as long as we can show them how much we love them, I think at the end of the day, like how I feel such respect for what she's done, I think that's what matters.
Victoria, I'd like to get your opinion as well, not only on seeing working moms in the industry, but what also touched me was how Val specifically saw her crew or her team as an extent, like they all sort of worked and believed that they were a family, and that's what seemed to be really holding up this restaurant.
I think that's also another part that actually touched me in the movie, when she says, you know, I'm here for you. I mean, at one point that team, actually, it is your family, you know. I mean, you spend 12, 14, 16 hours a day. You go through rough patches together, you know, and that creates a bond. I think guilt is kind of funny, you know. I'm also 40. I don't have kids, you know. I also struggle with how to have my personal life be present because what I do the most is just I work. So we still have to choose. I still feel like we have to choose what's a priority. And you are right, you know, and we never actually have, you know, that lack of finding someone who understands all the time what it is to go through it. You know, it kind of rips you apart sometimes, you know. It's your passion that also at the same time it's the only thing you do. So I think, for example, you know, with the team, it's just like, it's the same. You know, there's so much love that goes in there. There's so much passion and care. The struggles that you face together, it's like family. You know, when you have a fight with your mom, I mean, I love my mom. I'm an only child. We have an argument, the next day we forget about it. But then those things have built our relationship, you know, so much. So you are there for the team, 1,000%, but also they do actually bring you up. You know, sometimes I'm down and I'm there and I see someone smile, and then I'm like, you know, I have to be, you know, who I have to be also for them. I feel that sort of pressure, you know, I mean, responsibility for sure.
You know, my initial final question was going to be, what do you want young female chefs to take away from this? But now watching this film and thinking about some of the issues that you were both talking about, what do you want young men chefs to take away from a film like this?
I think, number one, to really make a difference, men have to be involved in the solution, to embrace what we're talking about here and to be part of it. And by what I see, we've been traveling the country over the past year and a half, bringing this film into communities and really sparking these discussions, and also honoring women in the industry who maybe don't get the recognition that they deserve, but are rock stars. So I've learned so much, and what I think it is like what Victoria said, it's such camaraderie. You know, we can look at the industry and say, there's this and this and this wrong with it, but on the other hand, it's pretty hard to find an industry that you feel so connected to your people, you know. Yeah, and sure. So I think that what men need to realize is, let's look at each other equally. Let's look at each other not based on sex, color, background, sexual orientation, nothing, gender. Let's just all play our part and be there for one another. And I think for the most part, in kitchens that are professional, which benefit the men and women alike, you know, you're talking about fair wage, you're talking about flexible scheduling, you're talking about practices that cause more equity. I think that the teams get it. You know, there's nothing we need to explain to them.
I actually want people to understand respect. You know, I think we have made sometimes, I struggle to understand what women have actually, done this in this time in the industry, because sometimes there's so many good things and so many things that we've done wrong because we work extra hard, like the extra hard part made it much more complicated in general. So I always kind of analyze what's going on. And I think in general, I think different generations are going to have a different take these days. And I think the more women you see, the more it's going to be a norm. It's just normal to see more women in the kitchen. So I would like people just to be more respectful. That's it. But I mean for everyone. Dishwasher, male, gender the same, diversity, someone from Asia, someone from South America. I think tolerance is something that is actually a big word that people forget these days. And I can see it a lot in kitchens sometimes, and in many different ambiances too. The tolerance is actually not there. So I would like people to understand what women go through, but also to understand where they come from. What the story is like, and to put themselves in their shoes. I think that's a good idea.
I would just add finally, and especially education for the guests and the customers, because these people do this with their heart and love. That's what it's about. It's not about the money or awards. It's about they really love what they're doing. And so I think it means the world if you get a good customer, instead of always yelping or whatever, saying the negative. When you have a good experience, let the chef know, let the manager know, because that really means a lot to them. And if there's an issue, talk to them. So I think it's important for the customers to realize these people are putting their whole heart and soul in what they're doing.
All right. Ladies, I want to thank you both for joining us, and Joanna for such an amazing film. Again, relatable, I think, to just about every woman in America. And Victoria, of course, for the amazing bar and grill that you run.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you. If you'd like to watch A Fine Line on PBS, visit our website at metrofocus.org for viewing opportunities.